I don't know who needs to hear this, but you should be interviewing the school too, and not just the other way around. If you've been asked if you have any questions at the end of an interview and you say no, then we need to have a talk. Hi, my name is Helena, a coach for new and first year teachers, and welcome to the Present Teacher. Thank you so much for joining us. So, with that being said, let's dive in. So, let's talk about flipping the dynamic. We were told that we need to be grateful for any job we get, especially as a first or new teacher, first year or new teacher. And when we do that, we come off as passive and not confident, sometimes a little bit desperate. We're just searching and reaching for any job that will hire us. But the reality is, districts can feel that, and they're looking for somebody who's showing up confident in what they do and what they have to offer. And so when you flip it, you realize that you are interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. So let's talk about why this matters. So first off, I've talked about this many times, but the whole reason I talk about interviewing on this channel is because I'm really passionate about keeping good teachers in the classroom, because selfishly, I want good teachers as coworkers, but I also want good teachers for Addie when he starts going to school. And the reality is, a lot of good teachers are leaving the profession, and not because of their skill, but because they're in a misaligned or mismatched district. And so it's really important that you ask questions at the end of your interview and interview them just as much, because you want to prevent burnout. And who you decide to work for your first couple of years can honestly determine whether or not you have a fulfilling career in teaching, especially in those foundational first couple of years. So we also want to avoid working for misaligned schools and districts. I see so many good teachers leave the profession because of misalignment and not skill in districts, which is why I started this whole thing in the first place. So now that we talked about why it matters, let's talk about what to look for. So first thing that we want to do is make a list of your dream district qualities. Does it have a big team that you're going to join? Maybe it has no team at all and you're a lone wolf. Maybe it has a very supportive place for new and first year teachers. Maybe it doesn't have any support, but make a list of your dream district qualities and then make a list of non-negotiables. So what are some things that you absolutely have to have in order to work for a district or a school? And then make a list of red flags. What are red flags to you? This could be like high turnover rate, lack of support for new and first year teachers. Maybe it's having the teacher be solely responsible for the behavior in the school, unsupportive admin. What does that look like to you? What are your absolute red flags? And then look for answers that contradict your non-negotiables or are red flags. Some examples that I often hear in interviews, or a lot of the teachers I work with here in their interviews, are, "We are a family here." This can kind of lead to a toxic environment where everyone, quote unquote, gets along and there's not a lot of emotional boundaries. We need everyone to be a team player. This can be often interpreted as we need people to be okay with overworking and us overstepping their boundaries and the work-life balance. They have a high turnover rate. Typically, there's a reason why, especially if there isn't a change in admin or leadership and they still have a high turnover rate. The reality is, oftentimes, that high turnover is probably not going to change. So let's talk about questions to ask at the end of your interview. So I've talked about this in previous week's content, but we want to come up with 3 to 5 questions to ask at the end of your interview to reflect your non-negotiables. So some question examples could be, how does admin support disruptive behavior in the classroom? That's a really good one if in the past you've had maybe unsupportive admin when it comes to extreme disruptive behavior in the classroom. What kind of support can a first-year teacher expect coming into the school or district? Especially important if you are looking for some kind of support as a new or first-year teacher. How many preps are teachers given each week? Are any of those preps used to cover classes? This is especially important if you are looking for work-life balance. And now that we talked about the different questions, let's talk about the identity shift you need to make in order to be interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. The first thing is you don't chase, you attract. You are not chasing the right district. You know who you are, you know what you stand for, and you know that just by being authentically yourself, you're going to attract the right district. You know your worth and the value you bring. You know what you stand for. You know why you're teaching. You know what kind of impact you can make in the classroom. You are confident and know that the kind of district you work for can determine your job fulfillment. You know how important those first couple of years of teaching are. So finding the right district from the get-go is really important. And so you're not here to mess around and just get hired by any district. You are here to get hired by the right district. And you are no longer going to be passive. So now let's talk about how to take action. Now let's talk about how you can take action. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna prepare 3 questions to ask at the end of your interview. Come up with 3 questions to ask at the end of your interview to figure out if the district is right for you. So that wraps up everything. Let's talk about everything we talked about so far as a recap. So first, we talked about how to flip the dynamic. We talked about why it matters that you hire or you interview the district just as much as they interview you. We talked about what to look for in regards to red flags and what to look for in your interview on some indicators that this might be a misaligned district. We talked about which questions to ask at the end of your interview, and we talked about the identity shift you need to make in order to show up confidently as that new teacher next door during your interview. And then I gave you homework on how to take action by preparing 3 questions to ask at the end of your interview. So with that being said, here are your next steps. First, I would really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, leave a review, or share this week's content with someone who you know could use it. My goal is, like I said, to get the right teachers in the right districts so good teachers can stay in the classroom. If you want to take this conversation a step further and you're looking for my top 10 weekly content on interviewing, check out my free teacher interview guide. It's got my top 10 podcasts and YouTube videos in regards to interviewing because I have a lot of content now, so this helps save you time and sifting through that. If you want help customizing your cover letter and resume to the district you're applying to make it feel like you're reading their mind, make sure to check out my teacher interview bundle. That has over 10 matching cover letter and resume templates. I show you how to fill it out, what to say, how to research, and it even has things like follow-up emails, asking for letters of recommendations, and even a demo lesson template. So make sure to check that out. If you want help with the entire process, how to research the right district, what to find from that research and use in your interview assets, how to show up during the interview, and what to do immediately following the interview, make sure to check out Land Your Dream Job. That is all about how to get hired by the right district, not just any district. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, remember, we are stronger together, and I'll see you in the next one, Teacher Bestie. Bye!